a late start. Two pieces of internet thing decided not to talk to each other, and I had to go put them back together where they belonged. Anyway, that's the boring version of what happened. But I'm glad everybody got a chance to catch up, and I'm excited to hear about all these new guitars that people have got. That's very cool. Today we're going to look at the embellished version of Zoozoo Bingo. And basically we're going to take the fundamental version and do some syncopation and some slides. So so far in the fundamental version, everything's been sort of picked, not slid or hammered on or anything like that. And everything's been very on the beat, which I think is a good way to learn it at first, because you've got to get used to, the thumb moving while the left hand is changing positions, and it still sounds like the song. But now we're going to take it and start to make it sound a little bit more fluid, building on that fundamental version. So let me pull that up, and let me make sure that I can see what's going on, and we will get into it. Oh, wait a second. This needs to be bigger, doesn't it? Hold on. Man, this has not been really my big day for tech, but I think I can fix that pretty easily. Looks pretty good, I think. Yeah. All right. And I'm on the wrong page. So, just to go back a little bit, here's the fundamental version. I'll play through it one time just to kind of get us all on the same page. More or less. That's everything pretty much on the beat with a couple of syncopations. Now, and that's actually, I had the wrong page up because that's with the A and the bass, but that's the idea. So for the embellished, the first thing, this first measure already, we're going from to, and so this is the kind of syncopation where things are happening sooner than they would have in the unsyncopated version. So one way to think of syncopation is just things happening. A melody note is sort of by definition something that you're kind of emphasizing. And so if you're taking a melody that goes and playing it, you're basically taking that third beat, 1, 2, and 3, 8, 4, and now you're playing 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1. So you're bringing a couple of melody notes forward, and so that's a very sort of like up in your head, up in my head, way of thinking about it. But what's really going on is that we're, instead of playing these as like, two chords, one on every couple of beats, we're taking this shape and sliding it up. And playing, grabbing this chord on the and of 4. So 1, 2, and 3, and 4. So coming back to the chord a little bit before we were before. then still keeping some stuff on the beat for contrast. And this rhythm kind of goes on throughout. So the main move is this. So playing the chord on 2 and then sliding up. So the slide is taking care of the note while the thumb is coming in on the downbeat of 3. And that is actually a kind of move that we've talked about before and that comes up all the time, where you're either sliding or hammering on or pulling off, and the note that you're getting is on a beat. So you've got to match the result of the slide, in this case, with the thumb. So this slide is coinciding with this stroke of the thumb. And then the thumb is going to come in and get the last bass note, and then you're going to jump back to the chord and grab a double stop with index and ring on the top string and the third string. And then again, instead of playing, you're going to play 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. So again, that slide move. So that's the first 2 bars. And really, that in of itself, if you can work out those bits from here, second measure, 1 and 2 and slide coinciding with the bass and thumb. That's really the whole, that's the germ of the whole thing. Like, that's the stuff that's tricky. The second 2 bars, measures 3 and 4, are basically taking that same idea and kind of turning them inside out. Like that. So now you're starting on the second string, pinching, coming up to the third string, sliding with the bass, playing on the right on the beat on beat 4, and then this is more on the downbeat as well, with one more slide on the and of 2 now, and then finishing up. So it's this combination of slides and these sort of rolling things that go across the strings. So it's a lot of just thumb, index, thumb, ring, you know, just kind of alternating. Now when you get to measure 5, this is much more straightforward. We're just in a open position chord. But instead of playing 1 and 2 and 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, we're also pulling notes ahead starting on the and of 2. 1, 2, and, sorry, on the and of 3. 1, 2, and 3, and 4, and 1, and 2. So if you think about what's happening at the beginning, in the fundamental, it's all on the beats. 1, 2, and 3, 4, 1. And now we're just pulling those last 3 notes forward onto the ands. 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And we've got a hammer on. And again, the hammer on is coinciding with the thumb on beat 3. 1, 2, and 3. So it's synchronizing that hammer on with that bass note. And you could also do this whole passage with A in the bass if you're not down for the thumb wrap. It's a little tricky. Sometimes you can get some buzz from your ring fingernail being right there. But it is a workaround if this is uncomfortable. And then, of course, you've got to jump up. We talked about this briefly last week. The pinky is kind of your guide. this note is just gonna, this finger is gonna slide up to the 8th fret, and that's kind of what you hold on to help make the E7 sharp 9 work. And then we're back to basically a repeat of, if you can do measures 3 and 4, you can do measures 7 and 8. It's a repeat. Then we're back to F with a slightly different melody for one measure, but just in one position. And then a couple of slightly different shapes for these chords. So a G7, where the 7th is on the 3rd fret of the 4th string. And you don't have to hold down the rest because you're just going to grab these notes. And then, again, for the E chord, you've got the 3rd in the bass. You've got the root here with your index finger. But you're going to play the bass and then pinch the 4th and the 2nd string. And then go to the high string. Sorry, you're going to pinch the 6th string and the 2nd string. Go to the high string. And then bring in the thumb. You could actually get the G like this. Let's see. If you jumped all the way over here from here, with your ring finger, could come over to the low string. Your pinky could come in on the 7th over here. And then this ring finger could just go up one fret to make the E with the G sharp in the bass. So that might be the best fingering. But in my more caveman moments, I would think, oh, this is the note to pivot around. This is the finger to pivot around. Ring finger is already here. Oh, just put down my middle finger. There's my E chord. Now I've got to switch this around to here and come over here. That's a little clunky. But it's possible also. And then a single note stop time lick at the end. So the whole thing, I'll play it kind of slowly. Faster. 1, 2, 3, and okay. Oh, some questions. Hey, Jamie Axelrod. In measure 5, why not just keep the pinky down on the 3rd fret until you slide it up in measure 6? You don't need the C again in that passage. Let's see. You could. But it sounds, the melody is a little blurrier if you just leave this down. Like those two notes ringing out against each other, it kind of obscures what the melody is when you hear a second, an interval of a second. So if you do take the pinky off, it kind of helps to shape that melody a little bit more. But that's personal preference. If you want to leave it down, it sounds kind of cool that way too. It's just different. Yeah, you could, but that's why I don't. Stephen, hello. In bars 3 and 4 and 7 and 8 of the fundamental and embellished, do you mute the open B string when you play the following note on the G string with your ring finger, or are you letting it ring? Let's see, 3 and 4. The B string when you play the following note on the G string with your ring finger. Hang on, let me check out this straight. The open B string when you play the following note. Oh, with this ring finger. Okay, well, so despite what I just told Jamie about like wanting these notes not to ring out, I actually do want these ones to ring out, because that B is part of the G chord, and I guess the difference is we're not coming back to the B note, we're going away from it, and so you get this kind of, in this case I think you do hear the melody because you're not sitting on this interval, you're not hearing that overlap. Here, I mean, now that I'm thinking about it, it's kind of a piece with the rest of the tune, right? But I guess I was thinking this would contrast with all this kind of jangly. But again, just I think it's kind of a personal taste thing. But if you're asking specifically, I'm letting it ring. I'm letting the B string ring so that I get this kind of ascending ring, sort of harp thing going. You know, it's like on a very small primitive level. It's like those Chet Atkins cascades, you know, where he's crossing strings going from I can't do them, so I can't really demonstrate. But I mean, like there's a Red Volkart lick that he probably got from Chet that does this. And it's kind of in that. This part I sort of want to be kind of slippery and vague, and then this part I want to be a little more specific. But like I was saying in the 1 o'clock session about the palm muting, it's like, don't let your attention to that kind of detail interfere with the bigger picture of just learning the tune and getting the moves together. Like whether that B note rings out or not, whether these guys ring out on top of each other or not, is less important than getting the overall tune together. And once it may seem backwards or like you're going to have to go and undo stuff, but it's not. The more you have the tune itself, just the parts under control, the better you'll be able to fine tune the things that you want in terms of these nuances, right? But whether the B rings out or not right now is not as important as getting the flow and the movement of the left hand and the coordination of the right hand and the whole thing just kind of rolling. No Blues Police for sure. I'm sure there are many people, the Blues Police wouldn't even consider this blues. So, you know, there's that. Okay, how are you playing the ghost note in the last measure? Oh, sure, yes. Let's see, so we're coming from... Oh, sorry. So we've just played this. So your ring finger's already here. And so just relaxing the grip. So as you relax your grip on the whole chord, you can pick the third string and then take your hand off to get the open string. Not as I'm dramatizing it, of course. You wouldn't really like, you know, really lift your hand all the way off, but like that. And a related question, Johnny. Hello, Johnny Farragher. Last bar, triplet slide and pull off. Any tips on getting enough sustain on one pluck? Oh, good question. And parenthetically, I should say that very last open note is, I mean, you don't have to get it. It's going to happen because, sorry. You're going to hear that open G as you go to make the new chord. Unless you're super careful. So I put it in there because you're going to hear it. But you don't have to go out of your way to get it. It will happen just by going to the next chord. But as far as this, yeah, the main thing I always suggest, so I'm sure you've heard me say it 1,000 times at this point, is just fingers to the wood, right? Make sure you're touching the wood. So as this slide happens, make sure as you go as you cross the fret that you don't lift up. Make sure that you're, like, just think about pushing through the fret. Like, you just don't want to ever let up contact with the fingerboard itself. And then the pull off is, remember that it's a pull off, not a lift off. So as you come off from the pinky to the index finger, this is the string. You don't want to just lift off. You want to kind of pull to the side and give the string a bit of a pluck. So you want to kind of snag the string right here on the fleshy part of your finger. And then, as you keep moving, you'll get some, you're basically plucking this note with this finger. So between those two things, and you're also letting the underside of this finger catch the high string so that you don't get, right? You don't want both of those, you just want that one. So it's that combination of staying close to the fretboard as you slide from the 4th fret to the 3rd fret, having this damping going on underneath here, and pulling to the side as you go for the C. So, let me know if that answers that question. Let's see. I think that's all the questions. But if you have more of them, let me have it. I'm just going to scroll back through and see. Jim, I like to include the D in the hammer. Let's see. Which D are we talking about? Oh. So this is backwards, the opposite of that, right? So you're hammering on index, so open to the C. This is, I guess you're talking about measure 5. Yeah, cool, that works. Same principle, only backwards. You want to make sure that your hammer-on is very decisive and straight to the fretboard. Like the string just happens to be in the way twice in a row. And that's a little bit of a tricky hammer-on because you're already using up a lot of energy over here, holding everything down. So this is strictly voluntary if you want to do that kind of thing. Let's see, what else have we got? Oh, a skiing analogy. Very good. Okay, is that the rule? You want to keep your skis pressed into the snow? Interesting. My skiing career ended sometime in middle school, but I applaud the sports analogy. Okay, 5th measure, yes, okay. Oh, excellent, Joel. Hey, Joel. Any tips on reducing string slidey noise when moving between positions on the neck? I think it is sort of the equivalent of what audio people call the signal to noise ratio, which is basically like when people were recording on tape, there's a certain amount of just hiss that you get with tape. And so you try to get the signal coming in through the microphone as loud as you can without breaking up so that you get a higher signal to noise ratio. So you get more guitar or more vocal or more drums or whatever it is because it improves the ratio, right? If let's say like this is the spectrum of sound that we get, and the hiss comes up to here, and if the guitar is only this loud, then half your sound is hiss. But if you can get the guitar to be this loud on the tape, then your signal to noise ratio is better, and so when you bring the guitar down, you have hardly any hiss. So it's the same thing with the squeaks. You want a better signal to noise ratio. So the more confidently you play, the more volume you can pull out of the instrument without the sound distorting or without snapping the strings. You know, like you don't want to be like, because that'll sound terrible, right? But you want to get enough volume and enough sustain that the hiss, basically the squeaks, fade into the background. You know, so I mean, it's still squeaking plenty when I'm playing it too. And you know, I had one day. I will now compare myself to Paul McCartney with an analogy. I was watching this Paul McCartney clip, and he talked about how, you know, they were asking him about if he ever, you know, felt like he had anything to prove, or like how could he possibly still be insecure after so many years of blah blah blah. And he was like, oh, you know, at the height of the Beatles, like he went home one day and happened to they were in the middle of like finalizing Revolver, and so he put on the test pressing of Revolver, and like suddenly decided the whole thing was out of tune, and he called up all the other guys and were like, oh my god, like what did we do? Like all of Revolver is completely out of tune, and they were like, no, it's fine. And like a day later, he was like, oh yeah, it's fine. And so, you know, the last solo record that I made, solo guitar record. You know, I'd been listening to it for months. I had helped mixed it, and we had mastered it, and I put it on one day, and I was like, oh my god. And all I could hear were the squeaks, you know, especially on songs like, you know, like it's just, all I could hear was, I was totally freaking out. But it's just, you know, it's just part of the sound. Yeah, unless you use flat wounds or, you know, whatever. Unless you specifically work around it. But you know, I just think you know, it's mostly like these are the things you notice when you're practicing, and then once you actually have the piece where you can play it with a little bit of confidence, and you can bring out more of the sound, and you can have more sustain, you know. It's still happening. There's also a big difference between sliding pressed to the wood and lifting up your fingers and relaxing your grip between every move. It's like twice as loud, right? I'm relaxing my grip, and so you're hearing this, but if I keep my finger pressed to the wood, you mostly hear the string. So I think that's part of it too, because like the example I just gave of this, you know, I'm relaxing my grip between each chord. But if I held my fingers down, it's a little better. And if I think about it a little bit, you know. The other great string story is I saw this guy, Anthony Jackson, give a clinic in the 90s, and he was like a big session guy, bass player. And his mentor in Philadelphia used old strings on his bass. And Anthony asked him, he said, well, how old? And the bass player said, well, like this. He said, I basically, whenever I have to put on a new set of strings, flat wounds, put on a new set of flat wounds, and I coat them in margarine. And then I leave the bass in the corner for about a year. And then it's ready to play. So, you know, that's another way to look at it, is just to play the deadest strings you can. Let's see if there are questions that I missed while I was just riffing up here. Okay, that was string squeaking. Oh, okay, from, hey Daniel, any disadvantage if the F chord is played with bar and getting other tones, B or C, with lifting up and down? Well, you got to be able to get that D note. I don't mind that. But then, I mean, if you want to play, like if you want to play the fifth in the bass, then that's okay. But you're gonna have to borrow the root that you got with your pinky to play the D note. So then you're gonna have to maybe think about playing it like this in the first place. And to me, it's a lot of this. But if the thumb's not working for you, then sure. I mean, that's okay too. I spent a lot. I mean, I didn't play the thumb wrap for a long time, and I learned to play like this. But I didn't have a way to play this note, so that's when I kind of eventually moved around. And I think I got interested more in playing like John Hurt and stuff like that. When I was just finger picking like pop songs or doing pattern picking, I just would do this, and then eventually kind of made that move. Let's see. So there's a slight disadvantage to the bar in my book, but if you can make it happen, make it happen. Yeah, coded strings. Some people love those. Yeah, the other thing about the squeak on recordings is that it depends where you put the microphones. So if you're recording at home and you're sticking a mic right in front of you, you're going to get a higher signal to noise ratio, a higher noise to signal ratio, right? Because the squeaks are going to be right in front of the microphone too. If you put a mic 10 feet away, you get more room sound, but you also, the ratio of squeak in the mic is going to be a lot lower. I learned this the hard way from making a record where someone put like 8 mics on me, or 7 mics. It's cool sounding. I mean, I like how the record sounds in the end, but we notice that the close mics, they pick up all the squeak. So that's why some people like put the mics further out. So let's see. Yeah, no, you can definitely, David Bishop, I see what you're talking about. Yeah, you could definitely do this. And use your ring finger for the root here. So yeah, that's cool. That's a good solution. Let's see. Flat wounds. Well, if you lift your fingers up enough, then if you lift them all the way off the fingerboard, then you can get rid of the squeak. This is a very particular situation because we want the sound of the slide. So in that case, you can't really lift your fingers off. But yeah, if you were going from here and you lift and your fingers hopped all the way off the strings and back, again, exaggerating, but you can get rid of the squeak altogether because you're not sliding, you're lifting and replacing. But in this case, the signature move of the tune, the main theme or phrase is that slide. So, yeah, that's going to be part of it. Yeah. Interesting. That's a good thing to kind of get into some detail with. All right. Okay. If there's other questions, the only other thing I thought I'd do was just give a quick preview of the fundamental vamp, because we'll work with that next week, and just see if there's any other questions. I put this out. I put this out to everybody in the preview. If you were here for the Fix Your Travis Picking live stream at 1:00. Just I had some questions. There was a pretty long post and a few additional comments in the thread about organizing the website. And so it's an ongoing project, and I just sort of threw this out there. And I'll just mention it here too. If, good questions. Okay, I'll get to those. If you've got further thoughts about anything organizational about the website, what you're having a hard time finding, or what would help you find stuff, put it in the comments or start a thread on the forum, because it's sort of an ongoing project, right? It's like there's been some new organizational things that I've done in the last 6 months, but I know there's always room for improvement, so I'm open to hearing whatever anybody wants to ask about in that department. Okay. Slotted headstock versus regular tuners. I own a couple of, well, I own 4 or 5 slot head guitars. I'm not really, I don't have a strong take on what they do for you sonically. They are a royal pain in the neck to change strings on. I'll say that. And I have slot heads because that's what the guitars I bought came with. Like I was buying the guitar, and that's how it was. So I don't have a real opinion about what slot heads do for you sonically. I know people like, I'm sure there is a difference, and I know people like Norman Blake have very strong feelings about what the slot head does. But like, for instance, this modern National, right? This National Resophonic has a slot head, and that's just how they make them. And so when I was getting a new National, it wasn't like, well, do you want a slot head or a solid headstock? I was just like, well, what's the guitar? And it's this guitar, so it has a slot head headstock. What do you know? It was more that. And the same thing with when I got the Collings way back. I got these at the same time, roughly, within a year of each other. And it was the same thing. The Collings had the slot head. That's just what that guitar had. So that's what I went with. And as a result, I don't change the strings all that often. But it doesn't strike me one way or the other in terms of feel or intonation or anything like that. I think they look cool too. And I'm sure it was part of the overall vibe of the Collings when I got it. The difference between the 2 PDFs for Zoozoo is literally one note that I had to fix. In version 1.01, this note was not syncopated. It was syncopated in the tab, but this note was over here, and I just moved it over in time for the live stream, just to make sure that it wasn't confusing. Here's an actual musical question too, from Jody. Welcome back, Jody. Glad to have you back here after your hand experience. I'm having trouble with the E7 flat 9, and for now anyway, I'm hitting the first and second strings at the 3rd fret and faking a couple of bass notes. Yeah, that's cool. You could play that chord. You could have for the bass, you could have the root and the flat 7 on the open 4th string, and you could play the chord or just the open high string. So a pretty easy fix. I don't know if that's what you're doing, but something like that. Kevin, when composing a tune like Zoozoo, do you usually work it out with guitar in hand, or does the melody just pop in your head? This was totally written on the guitar. I know people, my friend Brett is actually working on a collection of songs right now, and he just, walks around the house singing these melodies and then finds them on the instrument. I do not tend to have that kind of discipline. I just was, all I knew was, usually I tend to work more from a point of view of, I want to write a song in this key, or I want to have a tune that does this kind of thing. And so I had a bunch of different ideas or a few different ideas that I was messing with, as far as that were under the sort of general category of a new song in A minor, right? And this was the most interesting thing that I came up with, so I pursued it. And I loved this. I just liked that. That's really all I had. And then I figured out you could turn it upside down. Because I think originally I probably played it twice in a row, just. Have some variety. And then I think originally it was only 8 bars. And I was like, okay, well, so it's going to be an AAB song. It's going to be 8 bars I'll do a bridge and I'll come back. And then I was like, I kept messing with it. And then I think, somewhere along the way, I had the thought to put it in a 12-bar blues. And then I thought that would be kind of cool because it's not, it's like this different kind of feel, and it's got this open string, this sort of cross string color kind of thing going on. And then the idea was like, oh, well, then if I do that, then I'm going to go back to the F one more time. So it's kind of oblique. It doesn't go right to like an E chord. It goes back to the F and then walks up. And in this case, a lot of times I'm motivated by what the bass is going to do, right? Like I want to have... And then I have to figure out what that means in terms of the voicings. And so that got me to... And I wanted to play the melody different the second time I hit the F chord. And then shortened it so it didn't sound exactly the same at the end, and put in a little fill, and that was kind of the thing. And I don't think I came up with that B section until I was like, oh, maybe I'll like just record this and post it, because I was thinking, well, let me post it, and if people seem to think it's... Because I hadn't performed it yet, I hadn't played it for anybody, so I thought, well, I'll post it, and if people think it sounds cool, then that's something we could maybe learn, which is pretty much exactly what happened. The results were I thought maybe one or two people would be like, hey, cool song. But like a bunch of people were like, hey, can we do that in the membership? And I was like, perfect. Let's do that. And then this idea of like, doing a new A minor tune and then revisiting an old A minor tune. And then it was sort of off to the races with that. Will I please play Bryant Park? Yeah. But not from memory, because I haven't memorized that one yet. Let's see. I'll do that I'll do that in just a second. Who was saying, search YouTube for restringing a slotted headstock? Yeah, I can do it. I just don't enjoy it. I always end up like stabbing myself with the end of the string or something. Years and years and years ago, I got a lesson from Matt Umanov at the guitar store about he showed me how he wraps the string, or like does the over under and kind of like holds the string against itself so that it, especially with the unwound string, so it kind of knots itself and doesn't, slip. And so I can do that pretty easily. I can change like a non-slotted headstock in like 10 minutes, all the way from like taking them off to putting them back on. I got fast. But slotted, just you can't do that trick, and it's just you got to overwind them, and the whole thing is just kind of a thing. Let's see. So Bryant Park, yes, and from Valerie. I've been trying harder to memorize, and finding memorizing chord progression, as indicated by the bass line, is helping. Yes. Please say that louder into the microphone. Yeah. If you learn the bass line, it's teaching you the chord progression. It's teaching you the form. And so, yeah, that's the thing. So good. I'm glad that's working. I used to live around the corner from Maddie's, right by what my friend Jack used to call Father Demo Square, the patron saint of singer-songwriters, Father Demo. I think it's really pronounced Demo, but we all called it Father Demo. Okay, let me pull up the tab. I'm going to read my own song because I want to play it as accurately as I can if I'm going to play it. So that is an eminently reasonable request. Here's Bryant Park. Oh yeah. Oh man. I will confess. I'm looking at this because this is basically like we transcribed what was basically, these are moves that I do when I play E blues, but it was kind of an improvised chorus. And I'll I could sit and play E blues with these moves, but it wouldn't be like exactly the thing, you know. Let me put it on screen. And we'll kind of roll out with this. Let's see. Where is it? Hold on, let me get this for you. PDF. I don't want that one. I want this one. Bryant Park. Where are you? There we go. Okay, Bryant Park. Let me put this. Okay. Okay, do we have Bryant Park on screen now? We should. Let me just make sure. Yeah, okay. So, I will crawl through this one time and then play it amazingly the second time. Let's see. Okay, so oh, sorry. Yeah, so like that. And I could, at a future session, if we have time, I could break that down a little bit more for if you want, as far as why it's doing what it's doing. But it's just a bunch of fancy chord substitutions, basically. You know, E with G sharp in the bass, A. And then this is something, I mean, this is like a, that's like a little worked out thing that I tend to throw into things like any blues. And then this is the Ray Bryant turnaround. That's why it's called Bryant Park. And the whole thing came from a YouTube lesson called the Ray Bryant turnaround. And so I played a chorus. I played this chorus basically to demonstrate the Ray Bryant turnaround, and then thought it would be cool to write it out because it sounds kind of like you play it enough times and it starts to sound like a song. So, and I'd also been listening to a bunch of bebop stuff where the tunes kind of sounded like written out solos sometimes. Two sort of related questions. Yes, so from Ron and from Daniel, basically about the B section. Do you plan to go over the ascending chord section of Zoozoo B section, Zoozoo Bingo, from the YouTube video in the future live stream? Yeah, that's already written out. We're going to do it during the arranging month. It's basically takes the place of the shout chorus. Oh, there's a shout chorus also. If I hate to overpromise, underdeliver, so I hesitate to say this, but if I can figure out a way to post a little bit of that before the arranging month for people that are really hot to trot, I will do so. But I figured this tune was tricky enough that I didn't want to sort of pile on with the B section right away. But if y'all are really antsy to get some tab for it, I will try and make that happen. But it's basically that one repeating lick each time, and then, you know, at least the first time through, it's an E chord, and then the same riff, and then an F chord, and then a D G7, and then same G chord, same E chord, basically. And that's the whole trick, you know. Oh, I guess I did this. I doubled the B. So there it is. I mean, that's basically the whole thing, just, you know, without tab, but that's how it works. Root, flat 5, 4, 3, root. And then you hit the chord 3 times. 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1. And so that's just F major 7, D7 with F sharp in the bass, G with a 7 here, and then this E with a G in the bass, so G sharp in the bass, G sharp, E, B, and you're doubling the B's here on the 3rd and 2nd string, and that's the whole shebang. The second time through, the chords go up like this: E7, F7, D7, G7, E7. Just a set of 4-note chords. So just pretty repetitive, but you know, you get that climb. So that's the B section, but I will have it tabbed out for the arranging month. If I can provide it sooner, I'll be happy to, but that's enough to get started on it for sure. Wow, lots of good questions today. Okay, next week we'll look at the vamps. There's short versions of those you can watch right now, and sorry I didn't go full screen there for those chords just now. That would have been smart, but yeah. So yeah, next week the vamps, and then in February we will do the improvisation. There is one date that there's one Thursday coming up. I think I'll post it, but there's one Thursday that I need to move by a day to Friday. Just family travel thing that came up. But I'll post that in plenty of time. But just a heads up, try to keep it as consistent as possible for Thursdays, but this one day I will not be getting back in time to do it. So again, I'll put it in the calendar. And any thoughts you have about the website organization or anything like that, just post them here, or post them in the forum, or drop me a line. And I'll try to make things smoother. And if you're new, welcome. And if this is your first live stream, glad to have you here. And you know, the live streams are always archived in the place where they initially took place. So if that wasn't clear to you, that's how it works. All right, everybody. Great to see you all, and I will